Hello, this is the video lecture for Word Module 1. Before I get started, I want to point out that here in our Canvas modules, there is a section here that refers to the data files that go with the textbook exercises. There's a link here to a zipped folder that has all the files if you wanted to read through the textbook and do the step-by-step exercises in the textbook. This is not part of your graded homework, but if you wanted to be able to work on the same files that I'm going through as I read through the chapter, you can download those data files and watch as you do the same steps. All of the videos that I create that go with these chapters will be found here in this textbook project videos link. So I've already downloaded the files and I already have them available. However, for this first exercise in Word Module 1, the first step says to open a blank document. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Word. I happen to already have something open here, so I'm going to go to File and New, or blank document. And in this first chapter, it wants to introduce you to the Word window. So there's a lot in the textbook that identifies parts of the window, which I will do here quickly before we start putting text into this. So at the very top, and what's nice about learning one Microsoft Office application is the others will be set up very similarly. So then it's easier to learn other Microsoft Office applications. At the very top in this section here, I have the Quick Access toolbar. That has links for me to save the document, undo something I've done. This has repeat. This will change to redo if I've undone something. And I have this little drop-down arrow where I can customize the Quick Access toolbar. So you can see the things that have a green check mark, those are already available on this Quick Access toolbar. If I want to add other things, I can select them from this list here, and then they will be added as shortcuts to the Quick Access toolbar. At the very top here, we call this the title bar. Right now it says Document 4 on mine. When you first launch Word, each time it'll say Document 1 for a blank document. This will change once I've saved and named the file. The file name will appear here at the top. I've got a search box where I can search for how to do something in Word. This can even offer me results from either the Word help menu or on the web. So you can search to do something in this box. You can see this little screen tip that popped up that says just start typing here to bring features to your fingertips and get help. On the far right side over here, you can see this says that I'm signed in to my Microsoft account. So students, on your syllabus, there's information to get Microsoft Office for free. You should have already downloaded that if you don't have it already in order to do these exercises. But you also get a terabyte of storage in Microsoft OneDrive. And so if you log into your Microsoft account, you'll have an option to save to your OneDrive, just as you would to save to a flash drive or to the documents folder. And so that's just showing me that I'm logged in. I've got some other options here. This is like a news icon, a little megaphone where I can get upcoming features. And then I have my minimize button. This will allow me to minimize the window down to the taskbar down at the bottom of my screen. You can see there's an icon here for Word. I actually have another Word document open. But the minimize button doesn't close it, it just minimizes it to the taskbar. Then you can go to the taskbar to reopen the file by clicking on it. This button right now is called the Restore Down button. When you see a little box which represents the window and a window behind a window. It gives me some options to be able to see windows side by side or stacked if I have multiple windows open. Once you have restored the window down to a smaller size, this button changes to the full screen or expand icon. So you see if I click on that, I've restored it down. Now the button has changed and I can click on it to expand it to full screen. The X, which I think most people know, will close this window. If I have other Word windows open, this will not close all of Microsoft Word. It will only close the window that we are viewing. Beneath all of that top part of the screen, over here we have, most of this is called the menu bar, but the first item is really not part of the menu options. The File button takes you to what's called Backstage View. And Backstage View has options here on the left panel. I can create a new document here. There's some templates that I can select from. I can go to More Templates if I want to do that. Recently opened files appear here in this list. I can go to New and create a new blank document, or again, choose from several templates. I can open an existing file. If it's not here because I recently opened it, I can go and browse different locations on my computer. And then there's a lot of other options to save it, save as something else. I can print the document. I can share it, export it. And then down at the very bottom here, there's an Options button, which I'm going to click on. This is very important for different settings that you might adjust on your computer. One of the things that I see come up sometimes is that if a student purchased a computer in another country where they have the metric system, their ruler might be in metric as opposed to inches, and they might have to go in to change that. So there's a lot of options over here on the left-hand side. You can see here, display, proofreading, when you're proofing, what is it looking for? Language, if my computer was set up in a different language, I can add a language for my display and for other proofing options like the dictionary, so you can make changes there. If I go to advanced here, let's see, I think the ruler measurements are in here somewhere, but I can't find it. But you can explore this on your own, but it's a great thing to know about because this lets you customize how you see things in the application. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of that. Now let's talk about the ribbons. So the first ribbon tab is the Home tab. And so I call this the Home ribbon. And the different areas on the ribbon are grouped with a little vertical gray bar. So I've got the clipboard group, the font group, paragraph group, and so on. Some of these groups also have little squares with an arrow in the bottom right corner. This is a launch button that lets you open up a dialog box for other commands that are related to that group. So within a group, I've got a lot of options here. For example, this in the font group is the font style. You can see if I click on that arrow, I can see the fonts in their styles, like this Algerian is all caps and it's very fancy. Some of them are already in a bold type. So there's a lot of options there. I've got the font size, and you can see that the default font is Calibri and the default font size is 11 in a new Word document. And so I've got a lot of options here, bold, italic, underline. I can change the font to a typography effect where I have an outline and there's different options there. We'll look at some of those, like see with shadows and reflections. I can highlight, I can change the font color. But if I click on this little launch button here, it opens up a dialog box. So it has a lot of the same things, like I can apply bold, italic, both bold and italic. I can do an underline here. But one thing I don't have up here with underline are different underline styles. There's a lot of options here. So I have that in the dialog box. I have options like small caps, strike through, that's used in like contracts when there's some language that you don't want to remove from the contract, but you want to show a line through it. You can use that when you select the text and apply that effect. Superscript and subscript raises the whatever you've typed a little higher off the line or below. Like if you wanted to write H2O and you wanted the 2 to be lowered, you could apply the subscript effect to that. Small caps, all caps, a lot of options here. There's an advanced tab with some other options to stretch out your text by expanding it. See, instead of normal, you could choose expanded and would stretch the letters out. So I'll cancel there. So anytime you see the little box with the arrow in it in the bottom right corner of a ribbon group, it means a dialog box will launch, giving you more options that are related to that. Now, if you want to go to a different ribbon tab, all you have to do is just simply click on the tabs at the top. My computer's running a little slow here. Another thing is, as long as your mouse is up here in the ribbon area, you can also roll your mouse wheel if your mouse has a wheel on it, and it will scroll through the different ribbon tabs. So as we learn about Word, Excel, Access, and PowerPoint, you will see that they all have a home ribbon, and they may have some of the same icons and groups on the ribbons, but there will be things that are unique to the applications. So they're not all exactly the same, but they'll all have a ribbon at the top. On the top here at the screen, you can see I've got a ruler. This is showing me right now the white space seems like it goes to 6.5 inches because the default paper size is 8.5 by 11. So if my text space, which is the white space, is 6.5 inches, then it means there's 2 additional inches on the left and the right. So the default left and right margins are 1 inch. The default top and bottom margins are also 1 inch. So you can see this little blinking insertion point is not at the very top of the page. It's down. If you look on the left-hand side to the ruler over here, it's down 1 inch from the top edge of the sheet. So the screen right now is set at 100%. If you look down here on the bottom right side, our zoom slider, I can increase that to make this larger on the screen, or I can decrease it. So right now we're able to see this at 100% of its size, but if I want to be able to easily read it or proofread, I might want to increase that. So we'll talk about modifying the margins, but this is all the defaults. Now the other thing is, if I go to the View tab, I can say I want to view the whole page. So I can say I want to view one page, and now I can see the whole 8.5 by 11 sheet. You'll notice that it's in this vertical orientation, what we call portrait, as opposed to landscape, which would be wide rather than tall. So we'll talk about making those changes as well. But these are all of the default settings. Now if I want to go back and to 100%, I could either drag the zoom slider down here on the bottom right side. I could click on 100% here. I can also click on page width to quickly get it so that I am seeing the sheet as large as it can be while still seeing the margins. Sometimes folks don't need to see the margins on the left and right as they are typing, so you might even make it even bigger than that. But that's something that you can do. So remember, a lot of this is in the textbook, all of the parts of the window. I'll be talking about them as we go through. Before I move on, I do want to mention down at the bottom of the screen, we have an area called the status bar. Right now it says I'm on page 1 of 1. I've got some other things here that have popped up, like a word count here. Some other options over here on the right-hand side. I have what's called the read mode that can take a document and display it like a book where you have a left and a right. This is just for viewing to make it easy to read through a lot of text that might be in a document. Print layout view allows you to see what we call WYSIWYG view. What you see is what you get, because you can see the margins and you can see where the pages will break, which is what we are in right now, because you can see that one is sort of shaded gray. I'm not sure if the video will show that, but that's the current view we're in. And web layout view would let you see how it would look if you were to save it as a web page. Okay? And then we've already talked about the zoom slider. On the right-hand side, you can see I've got a scroll bar that lets me scroll up and down. I don't have anything in this document yet, so there's really nothing to scroll to. But you can either drag that bar, or you can click the up arrow or down arrow at the top and bottom of the bar to also scroll through the document, or roll your mouse wheel to scroll through. Okay, so moving along with the exercise, here with my insertion point at the top of the document, the instructions say to type in JCL Talent and then press enter 2 times. Now, you can see that it looks like I've moved down quite a bit here, even though I only pressed enter twice. I'm going to go back to the home ribbon and turn on the show hide button here so that you can see that I pressed enter once, I pressed enter twice, and that moved me down to this position. Now the show hide button can either turn on or off what we call non-printing characters. Okay, so pressing the enter key is a keystroke on my keyboard, but that's not something that prints out. So the paragraph symbol is used to show where the enter key was pressed. If I just press the tab key right here, you can see that every time I press tab, an arrow appears. And I should talk about that. Every time you press tab, the default settings are to move it to the ½ mark. So if I back up that first tab, my insertion point is positioned, if I look up here, at the ½ mark. If I press tab again and follow my eye up the ruler, it's at the 1" mark. So we'll be talking in another, I think it's in another chapter, about how to adjust margins so that you don't go to the ½ marks. You can go to whatever specific position you would like to go to by setting tabs. Okay, I'm going to back up to go back to this side. So I'm going to leave the show hide button on for now so that you can see that. Oh, I know another thing I wanted to mention is that the reason why there's extra space here is because of the normal style. Now, in old versions of Word, this wasn't the way it was. If I pressed enter, it would go right underneath, like where my mouse is right now, right underneath the text. But it now gives you extra spacing between paragraphs. Now, if I type a long paragraph that wraps around, it's not going to put extra space. This is only when I press the enter key. In the paragraph group, there is a line and paragraph spacings button, and if I click on that, you can see there's an option at the bottom to remove space after. So that is letting me know that every time I press the enter key, the paragraphs are going to have extra spacing after. So this paragraph, if I double click on this for a second, you can see how there's extra space here. That is the spacing that's added after the paragraph. There is a no spacing option here. If you've already typed all of the text, you would need to select it, which we'll get to before choosing that. If you know that you don't want extra spacing and you're starting a new document, you can choose no spacing before you begin, and then you won't have that extra spacing between the paragraphs. Okay, the next step is to type in 2: and press the tab key twice. And then I'm going to type in JCL Managers. And I'll press enter. And then I'm going to put in from, : I'm going to press tab, enter. Date, tab. So you can see by the arrows how many times I'm pressing tab. And regarding, tab. And then it says press enter 2 times. Enter. Okay. Now, here I'm going to start typing in the text for the paragraphs. I'm going to just scroll down a little bit and start typing in this paragraph. I'm going to pause for a second so you don't have to, well, actually I'm going to leave this on for a moment so you can watch as this text wraps. So I'll try to type quickly. Now, right here you'll notice that the word meeting appears and then tab. If I am going to write the word meeting, but I'm actually going to type staff, I could press the tab key and have the program automatically complete that next word. So when you see that happen, you can press the tab key to accept that, or you can just simply keep typing to override that. Now here I do want meeting, so if I press tab, it continues and types meeting for me. Now I'm backing up just not to, I wouldn't worry about making typos because we're going to be doing a spell check on this, but if you're following along with me, I don't want to have that, have too many errors. Now, in the textbook, the line ends after the up here, 3 p.m. in the. But you're going to continue typing, and you'll notice that I did not press enter. See, there's no backward P symbol here. When you get to your right margin, the program will automatically wrap the text to the next line and continue on. And you'll notice that there's not extra spacing here. As long as you're typing within a single paragraph, you're just getting single spaced, unless you've changed the line spacing to double space, which is not the default. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and type the period, and then I'll press the space bar for the next sentence. Now this next sentence has, one thing I forgot to mention is, I should have mentioned this as I typed 18th. So after I typed in the TH for 18th, it automatically adjusted it to have this superscript text. If I did not want that, immediately after I had typed it, I would have needed to use the undo button to undo that. Now, if I come back here and I type TH now, you can see that that's not changing it. Okay, so I'd have to get rid of the 8 and then type TH if I don't want that to be in superscript. The program will automatically do that for you. All right, so I'll continue on typing this in. Here you'll notice also when I type the first 4 letters of September, I'm not getting the information with tab and parentheses, but for common things like months, names of months, days of the week, it will want to do an autocomplete. So when you see the screen showing you the rest of that, you can press the tab key to complete that. So even though you don't see tab in a box, you can always press tab when you see an option to autocomplete that entry. Okay, after this paragraph, I'm going to press enter, and now you'll see there's extra space, because remember, the default in the normal style is to add spacing after the paragraph. So when you press enter, there'll be extra space before the next paragraph begins. Okay, I'm going to pause and continue typing the rest of the paragraphs. If you're following along with me, you can go ahead and do that, or you can wait until I type these in and then continue on with me with this exercise. Okay, so I've gone ahead and typed in this second paragraph here, and you'll notice that this proper name, Joe Chars, has a red wavy underline underneath it. This represents a word that's not found in Word's dictionary, so it doesn't always mean it's misspelled, because many proper names are not found in the dictionary. So if I wanted to change it or ignore it, I can right-click on that word. Now, right-clicking in any application will give you what we call a shortcut menu. And in this case, it's showing me that there's a spelling issue, and it's giving me some options. Did I mean Johari, Joshers? These seem like other proper names as well. Or do I want to ignore this and all occurrences of this name? So if I click ignore all, the red wavy underline goes away. So the red wavy underline is helpful if you want to check the spelling as you are typing. It alerts you, and then you can see it. Of course, you don't have to do that as you go. You can always run a full spelling and grammar check when you've completed all of your writing. So it alerts you in the moment, and then you can use that if you want by right-clicking on it. The next thing it asks us to do in the exercise is to position our I-beam, and that is what your mouse looks like when you are in any text area. So some people call it the cursor, but the cursor is actually the blinking bar. So as I move my mouse around, I can see the I-beam moving around, and I can use that to position the cursor in a particular position. So it says to put it after the word for, but before the space in the last sentence of the first paragraph. So here's the page is scheduled for September. It says before, after the word for, but before the space. So having your mouse look like a capital I makes it easy to get right in between the R and that dot. So with the show hide button turned on, spaces are represented by this raised dot. And so those don't print out. Remember, those are just for me to see while I have the show hide button turned on. With my insertion point now positioned in that spot, I'm going to press the backspace key 3 times to get rid of the word for. So the backspace key can allow me to delete anything before the insertion point. The delete key can be used to delete anything to the right of the insertion point. So you can either use backspace or delete on your keyboard. It just depends on where you position your insertion point. And now I'm going to replace for with to launch in. Next, it says to move the insertion point before staff in the first sentence. So right here. And this time I want to delete the word staff and the space after it. So since my insertion point is in front of the word I want to delete, I'll have to use the delete key this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It says to press delete 6 times to delete that word. Okay, so now the next step in the exercise is about saving the document. So you can see that this document has not been saved. It just had the default document for. I started off with a blank document. So if I go to File, I have 2 options here, Save or Save As. It really doesn't matter which one I choose. If I click Save, Save As opens because I've never saved this document before. If the document has been saved already and I want to save it with a new name or put it in a new location, I would then need to go to Save As. Otherwise, Save in the future will just update any changes I've made. So remember, the first time it doesn't matter. You can click Save. Save As is going to open anyway. Now you can see mine defaulted to my OneDrive account that I have. If I want to save it in a different location, I can click Browse and then go and find another place on my computer that I want to save it to. I have a lot of stuff on my computer, but if I wanted to, for example, save it on my desktop and I want to make a folder for MAB 60 homework. Now I have a folder here. I'm not sure what I have in here that says MAB 60. So I have some files in there already. So, and one of them, well, I don't think these are going to have the exact same name. So I'll go ahead and leave it here. But if you wanted to go to a location and create a new folder, for example, MAB 60 lectures, you could click on the new folder button. A new folder will appear ready for you to give it a name. Textbook Projects, I'll call it. And then I'll press Enter to accept that name. And now if I want to save this file in that folder, I have to open the folder now by double-clicking on it. So if for any reason when you create a new folder, it is not in rename mode, meaning you don't see the text highlighted ready for you to retype, you can click a second time, one time, and it will put it back in rename mode. Another thing you can do is you can right-click on that folder and choose Rename, and it will put it back in that. So I want to open that folder. So you see now I went to the desktop, I went in the MAB 60 folder, and now I've created a folder called Textbook Projects. The textbook tells me to call it ILWD1 Memo, which I already see here. The reason why my name is at the end is because if we were using the SAM projects for the textbook, it would want you to have your name at the end. Which I can leave because this is not a homework assignment, but in the textbook it says just to name it like this. In the actual homework projects, it's very important, and I'll have another video on how to do those, but it's very important that the file name is exactly what it's supposed to be in order for the system to grade it for you. So I'll go ahead and click Save. Next, it says to place the insertion point before the word conference in the first sentence. So here's conference, I'll put right in front. And we're going to add in another word. We want to put large conference room. So as I type the word large and space, you can see it pushed everything over to the right. When you type within a paragraph, everything will be pushed over in order to make space for that new word. Now I've made that change. If I want to save that, I can just click now on the save icon, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Control S. So you'll notice as I'm pointing to the save icon on the quick access toolbar, there's a little screen tip that says save, and then in parentheses Control+S. That's the keyboard shortcut. So instead of using this icon, I could use that shortcut and that it would save this. Now if you ever forget to save and you go to close, the program always knows if you've made changes since you last saved. If you go to close the file, it'll ask you, do you want to save the changes you've made? So you never have to worry about that. Now, I would recommend that you do save periodically, especially on very lengthy documents, because if you had a power outage, something shut down, there is a system to recover some of the information. It'll recover from the past save, but if you were just doing something, it might have not recovered the last thing that you did. So it's a good idea to save periodically if you're working on a lengthy document. You don't want to have to retype it all. Now, the next part is about selecting text. Why is this important? Well, once we have text in a document, we might want to replace it, format it, change, which could be changing the color, changing the font size, and we need to select the text first in order to do that. So the textbook says now to turn on the Show Hide button, which we already did earlier on. And I'm going to scroll up to the top here, and it says click before JCL Managers right up here and select that text. So if I want to select this, I'm going to place my mouse right in front of JCL. I'm going to press and hold my mouse button down and drag over to select the text. Now when I release my mouse, a mini toolbar will appear that lets me make some basic changes. Rather than having to go up to the ribbon, I can do it right here on the screen. So with this text selected, I just deselected for a second here. If I needed to make any formatting changes, I could use the mini toolbar. But what they want us to do is to replace this with Creative Staff. So rather than using backspace or delete to delete this, now when I select all of this, if I did hit delete, it would delete everything that's selected. So that's a fast way to delete a lot of text. You don't have to just keep pressing the delete key one by one for every character. But if I want to replace the text, I can just start typing and it will automatically replace what was selected. So that's another use of selecting first. Down here with the name Dawn, they want us to replace the first and last name with your own first and last name. Now in the textbook it says to do them separately. Of course I wouldn't do that. I would select it all and type my first and last name. But they want to introduce you to different techniques for selecting text. So if I double click on Dawn, you can see that it automatically selected all of that. I didn't drag my mouse over, I simply double clicked. So double clicking is a quick way to select a single word. I can type in my name. I can double click on the last name here and type my, oops, that's my maiden name, type my last name. So that's another use for that. Now, the textbook has a little table of different ways to select text. I'm just going to talk about all of those before I continue on with the changes. So remember, you can drag your mouse over text. You can double click to select a single word. I can place my mouse to the left of the paragraph and my mouse changes from an I-beam to a white arrow pointing towards that line, and I can click. We call this area in the margin where your mouse changes to an arrow the selection bar, and it allows you to select line by line, or you can press and hold your mouse in the selection bar and drag down to select multiple lines. If I want to select a sentence, I'll scroll down here. If you can't have anything selected, Otherwise, this won't work. So you want to deselect by clicking any place. And then if I hold down my Control key and click anywhere on top of a sentence, it will select the entire sentence. Now you'll notice that there's a problem here. 3 p.m. is not the end of the sentence because it's seeing this period here and thinking that's the end of it. So it's not perfect. If I try to do the next sentence here, it's not letting me do that because I already have a sentence selected. So let me deselect. Now if I hold down the Control key and click here, you can see that time it worked. Now let me try it on a sentence that goes from one line to the next, like this prior to the meeting. If I hold down my Control key and click there, it understands that the sentence wraps all the way down to the here. So that's a fun, quick way. Now if I want to select an entire paragraph, I don't have to deselect the sentence first. I can triple click, 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 and that's a quick way to select a paragraph. Another thing is I can click at the beginning of the paragraph. I can hold down my Shift key, not Control, Shift, and click at the end, and it will select everything from point A to point B. It's another option, and that's a combination that's used in Excel a lot as well, so we'll see that when we get to Excel. Now, in the selection bar, there's another little trick. If I place my mouse in the selection bar, the margin to the left, where you get a white arrow, if you triple click, 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 it selects your entire document. Even if it was 100 pages, it will select all 100 pages of text and information. Another way to select all without using that technique is using the keyboard shortcut Control-A, holding down the Control key and typing the letter A. And that will also select all, A for all. Now in the textbook, they want us to replace the regarding line with regarding recruitment tips webpage. And it's saying to select this whole line by clicking in the selection bar and retyping everything. That's just to show you different ways to use this. I'm not going to do that because that just seems silly if I only want to really replace creative meeting. So I'm going to just highlight only that text by dragging over, and I'm going to type in recruitment tips webpage. Okay, next step is they want us in the second paragraph to select Anna Jochard has been hired to draft content. So I'm going to select all that. Now, that's the first sentence here, so there's a space after that. If I'm going to delete the sentence, I don't want that little extra space to be left at the beginning of the paragraph. Now, as I drag across, you can see when I get to the end here, I can drag enough so that it includes that space. And then if I press the delete key on my keyboard, it deletes the entire sentence. I now want to add on a sentence at the very end of the second paragraph. So I'm just going to take my mouse and click at the end here so that my insertion point is after that last period, after World Wide Web Consortium. And I will press the space bar and type in www.w3.org. Now, as soon as I press the spacebar, now it just so happens I do want for more information, but I just want to show you when I press the spacebar, it's automatically creating a hyperlink. I'm going to go ahead and press Tab to create the rest of that, and then a period. So whenever the program recognizes an email address or a web address, it wants to put it in a hyperlink format. And if I bring my mouse on top of this, you can see it says in the screen tip, hold down my Control key plus click on this if I wanted to follow that link. So Control and click would let me open up that web page if it's a real web page. And so we don't want that because they're not going to, maybe we're sending this, maybe we're printing it, and they're not going to be able to click on it. But if I don't want this formatted as a hyperlink, I can right-click anywhere on that text, and from the shortcut menu, I can choose Remove Hyperlink. And so now it goes back to the normal formatting. All right, I'll save my changes again just to make sure everything's saved. The next section is about formatting text using the mini toolbar and the ribbon. So I'm going to begin by going up to the top and selecting JCL Talent. Remember, you can either drag over or you can go in the selection bar and click. So remember, when you select the text, the mini toolbar appears, and it says to use the increase font size button on the mini toolbar and click it 6 times. So here's the increase font button. There's a screen tip on this that says, in parentheses, Control plus Shift plus greater than. If you hold down both the Control and the Shift key and strike the key that has the greater than symbol, which is actually above the period, that will also increase the font size in the same increments that you see on this list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I've moved it up to 22 point. And then it says to click the bold button on the mini toolbar, here the B for bold. Notice the screen tip, Control plus B. So I could have just used Control B in order to create bold text. I'll click on the italics button to italicize it. And I'll click on the underline button to underline it. Now we call these toggle switches. You can see now that they have a border around it. I've turned them on. I can click them to turn them on, click them to turn them off. You can use the shortcut Control B, Control I, Control U to also turn them on or off. Now the next thing we're going to do is center align it. Now I do have center align here on the mini toolbar, but I also have it up here in the paragraph group. So in a new blank Word document, the alignment of paragraphs is always by default to align left. You can have it centered, you can have it right aligned, and justified, which some people use when they want things to be neatly even on both the left and the right margin. Justification puts extra spacing between words in order to make everything line up evenly on the right. This is generally not used with business writing, letters, memos, emails. Sometimes it's used with things like a press release. Textbooks, for example, use it so that everything is neatly aligned on both the left and the right. So I'm going to click on the center alignment button. There's a shortcut for that as well. Control E. You might wonder, why is it Control E? Well, Control C was already claimed for a shortcut to copy, so it took the next letter in the word center. So I'll click on that and it center aligns it. Now I want to change the case. I had typed JCL in all caps, but I typed talent in mixed case with just a capital letter. On the ribbon, I have a change case button here in the font group, and I can click on that and choose to make them all uppercase. So easy, I don't have to retype all of that. I can just make some changes using that command. Next, it says to click the blank line between the regarding line and the body text. So right here, this blank paragraph, and I'm going to go and find the border button, which is here in the paragraph group, and I'm going to click the little drop-down arrow. Now, it so happens that the bottom border was already selected on here. So if I didn't click the down arrow and I just clicked on this little window pane, I would have gotten a bottom border. Which is what it's wanting me to select. Actually, it just said to click on that because it didn't have you open this up. So the default would have been bottom, but if I go ahead and click on the bottom, you can see it creates an entire border underneath that whole paragraph, okay, at the bottom edge of the paragraph. Okay, so we will save it again. The textbook talks about using zoom in to zoom in, to look at your document a little bit more carefully. I don't see any red wavy underlines for any spelling errors, but if I wanted to do a spell check, that is on the Review tab. Now you see I've got spelling and grammar. I've also got editor. This is something new that has been added. This wasn't in old versions of Word. This can check your work and compare it to things on the web, in addition to showing you spelling and grammar. We'll talk about this in another exercise. But if I just click on the top part of the spelling and grammar button, it will launch that editor. Oh, well, but it's showing me here the spelling and grammar. So I didn't realize, I forgot that the spelling and grammar is built into the editor, so it opens it anyway. But you can see here that for corrections, I don't need any because the spelling and grammar have a check mark there. Okay? I can close this panel by clicking the X. Now, you'll notice that after I did that, I am seeing some things with some little dots under it here. This is grammatical, not errors, but grammatical issues that it's bringing to my attention. So sometimes there may be actual grammatical errors. That's the reason why we didn't see anything come up on the editor. It wasn't an error. It didn't need to be corrected. This has to do with style. Okay, so if I click on this, it's saying I might need clarity, saying who or what did the action may be clear. That's something that it's asking me to double check, but no, the next meeting will be held on the 18th. That's fine. Now, down here I can say ignore, and it removes that. The page is scheduled to launch, another thing with clarity. So you may not get this. It depends on the settings for yours, but I'm not sure why all of these are popping up. I might have some settings changed on mine. In fact, if I click the bottom half of this spelling and grammar button, you can see I could just check spelling. If you're wondering how does it know what to check for the grammar, that is in Options. So let me go back to File and click on Options at the bottom and click on Proofing. And so you can see here the reason why I get the red wavy underline for spelling is because check spelling as you type. Mark grammar errors as you type is the dotted underscore. But remember, I didn't get those as I was typing them because they weren't actual errors. But if I click on Settings here, where I have the writing style, you can see I have some options here for just grammar and refinements or just grammar. Okay? And all of these right now on mine are checked to bring these to my attention. Okay? So if I don't want it to look at hyphenation as an issue, I could uncheck that so it's not checking for that. But it's easy to just have all of these checked and then choose to ignore it if it comes up when you do a spelling and grammar check. So that can be found in the Word options when you go to the File menu. Now the textbook says to print this. Obviously, you don't need to print this as you're just going through this to learn about Word. But print can be either launched with Control-P for print, or you can go to File to go to the Backstage view and click on Print. Sometimes in offices there may be multiple printers, so if I had different printers set up, as I do here at home, I've got a couple of different printers, so I could choose a different printer. I can choose how many copies I want. I can choose what I want to print, or I can pick certain pages by typing them in. Here, when I point to it, it gives you some examples. 1, 3, 5-12 would mean print pages 1, 3, and then 5 through 12. I can print them double-sided if my printer allows me to do that. By default, they are collated. It means if I have a 5-page document and I want to print out 3 copies, they will be printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uncollated means they come out 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and so on. If I realize, oh, I didn't want it in portrait orientation, I can change it to landscape here. I can change the paper size, and I can change the margins. All of these can be done from different ribbon tabs, but you can make them right before you print right here. Okay? And then how many pages per sheet. So it defaults to 1 page per sheet, but if I wanted to do multiple pages per sheet, I could choose that here. And so then if I was ready to print, I would go ahead and click the print button. Okay, I'm going to go back into my document by clicking that arrow in the upper left corner. And I'm going to stop here, and this will be part 1 of Word Module 1. There's another part of this where we're going to actually use an existing file rather than starting from scratch, and that will be in part 2 for Word Module 1.